Yes, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Think and Grow Rich Mastermind Live every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are here to talk about the most wonderful way for you to begin your day, begin your weekend. That is with the Think and Grow Rich book by Napoleon Hill. Just want you to know clearly I read this every day and I'm thrilled to welcome you all. Make sure that you write in the comments good morning. Make sure that you are showing up. Share this with all of your friends. Just do a share that you're watching it because we're so excited to have you here. We're so excited to talk to you. And actually, what we're doing is inviting you into my mastermind, my group that with Ann McNeil and Galen Bingham and Peter James, as we discuss, along with a guest that has appeared for us about Think and Grow Rich. And this week, we are reading from a wonderful chapter called Chapter 10, The Mystery of Sex Transmutation, the 10th Step to Riches. Yes, I did say sex transmutation. So let's just understand what this means. And from Napoleon Hill shared, the meaning of the word transmute is in simple language, the changing or transferring of one element or form of energy to another. The emotion of sex brings into being a state of mind. Because of ignorance on the subject, this state of mind is generally associated only with the physical side of human nature. And because of improper influences to which most people have been subjected in acquiring their knowledge about sex, this emphasis was on the purely physical aspects of sex and has created strong and often destructive into biases in most people's minds. The emotion of sex has back of it the possibility of three constructive potentialities. Remember that the emotion of sex. And these three are one, the perpetuation of the human race, two, the maintenance of sound physical and emotional health, and three, this is what we're talking about today, the transformation of mediocrity into genius through transmutation. Well, I have to introduce to you my co-host, because they truly have transformed from mediocrity into genius through transmutation. And there's no better way to do that than to start off with my friend Galen. Galen, I'm so glad that you're here and that we're talking about this transmutation from mediocrity into genius through transmutation. How, well, just how goes that with you? How goes that transmutation for you?
I'll tell you, the conversation before the show was so rich. I can't wait to get started. The text itself is really rich. One of the things that I've really taken to, and you showed off your book, so I'm going to show off my book too. Not quite as tattered as yours, but I'm working on it. But one of the things I wanted to zero in on is on page 191, and it says the emotion of sex is an irresistible force against which there can be no such opposition as an immovable body. When driven by the emotion, individuals become gifted with a superpower for action. Understand this truth, and you will catch the significance of the statement that sex transmutation can lift one to genius level performance. And so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about how do you supercharge your imagination? How do you supercharge your creativity so that you can access this passion for action against this thing that you say that you really, really desire? So I can't wait to put the pre-show conversation actually on the show. So let's get into it.
Yeah, that's because you want validation to go back to your life. I know that game.
Hey,
All right.
hey, this is Napoleon Hill. What am I supposed to do? I can't argue with Napoleon Hill.
I'm so there. And Peter, we already know that your face is already changing colors in this discussion because we're in public and this is not who you truly are. But I want to ask you a question that might, he also writes on 194 that the creative imagination functions best when the mind is operating or functioning, concentrating, vibrating as a result of some form of mind stimulation. Peter, you vibrate leadership, you vibrate genius, you vibrate at that level. Can you? Well, I'm just glad that you're here and help me because I got to get. I just take us to a different level.
Well, to piggyback off of Galen, first of all, let me just say this. I'm just going to jump on the bandwagon and hold up my book here, my copy, which is so new because my daughter keeps stealing mine off of my desk. Sex. That's what I want to say there, Piggy, because in what forum am I able to say that word and tie it to leadership and tie it to business and tie it to Think and Grow Rich or tie it to whatever we're talking about? Very rarely. And those of you who are watching and thinking, how in the world is sex even part of Think and Grow Rich? Well, let me read one more statement from the book. It says, top salespeople attain the status of mastery in selling because they either consciously or unconsciously transmute the energy of sex into sales enthusiasm. They figure out a way to conjure up that sexual drive and shift it into what they need to shift into. In this case, of course, sales. So I got to ask you all who are watching, sexual energy inside of you, even though it might be deep there, pull it out. And how can you transmute it into your goals, your passions, your dreams? So excited to be here today, Pegeen. Galen was right beforehand. I was like, this is going to be fabulous. We're going to talk sex. Can we even go deep into sex, Pegeen?
Oh, we are still going to go deep because I got to tell you, you said something really important from the book about how salespeople have this force when they transmute the sexual energy. And there is no one that I know that can sashay into a conference, that can sit on a stage, that can use her energy. Yes, it is her sexual energy transmuted to genius, and say her profound words in such a way that we know we're seeing sex transmutation in truth and behavior. And we're talking about Ann McNeil. So Ann, come on, sashay in, girl. Show us your.
Listen, again, everybody's showing off their book. So I'll do this one. And then there's one right above my head. So we're using, and they're the same. They're the same, right? So let's put this down here. First of all, good morning, everybody. Ann McNeil. Yes, yes, yes. I'm going to say it, the master builder, helping you to build a stronger business and life with this particular principle. Napoleon Hill tells us that greatness is the ability to recognize the power of your mind, then to embrace it, and then to use it. Well, this principle will show you how, as we get deeper into the principle of sex transmutation and how do you transform one form of energy into another creatively. So, again, I'm excited to have our guests come on as we delve into this conversation. It's going to be another awesome one. And I say this, I'm starting to sound like Galen. Every single principle has got to be the best, but I'm convinced that this is one of the very, very few principles, if you will, that wraps up that creative imagination, whether synthetic and or creative, and how you use it. So we'll get into that, starting with our guest names.
I am so excited about our guest. Yolanda is president of, she's president and CEO of CYPM Corporation, and it was founded out of the necessity to help Yolanda show her daughter and grandchildren that we can always find a way to take the knowledge that we have and turn it into a way of providing it for ourselves. I love the fact that you might hear a dog barking in the background. I am babysitting with my grand dog, and yeah, so just go with that flow over there. As well as pledge to take her knowledge and provide knowledge and struggles to provide a way to help others to find their way into the world and not shield them. I love that, from the struggles, but help them navigate the way through them. I think it's so important to introduce now Yolanda Phillips, who has used sex transmutation to take, and she teaches it from a perspective of mediocrity to genius. Hi, Yolanda.
Ooh, good morning.
Yeah, we're not going for just good morning. I'm ready to feel you and experience you. So Yolanda, can you tell me how, first, how you get to Think and Grow Rich, but reading your bio, it's clear that you are teaching people how to go from mediocrity to genius, and love to hear some of your infusion about how sex transmutation helps you do that.
Well, first, I want to show off my book. This is the second one I have, and it's falling apart. I don't quite read it every day. I'm not going to tell any fictitious tales, but I always have it by my side, and I am always ready to refer to it if I need to, which is all the time. And of course, it came from Miss Ann McNeil. She was the one that brought me in with this, and I can say that I didn't understand what all this was about initially. I always thought that when somebody said mastermind, I'm from a very small town, and a mastermind group was called a think tank. And that think tank consisted of a bunch of the guys in town that had jobs but were striving to be business people. And I just thought they just sat around doing nothing but hanging out and talking about nothing, which may have been the case for them, but this mastermind group thing is a lot different. Is at least I know it is for me. It's not just a bunch of people talking, it's intentionally putting you around yourself in a space where people have more to offer than what you think you may have to offer. And I said think, because a lot of times that's not true. Your thoughts are just as good as theirs, and they don't put you down. They meet you where you are and they elevate you through Think and Grow Rich principles. And this is how I got here. And this sex mutation thing is very interesting. I think I think better at night than I do during the day. It works better for me. I can sit up all night and do whatever I need to do. The day kind of starts with everybody in my space. No matter how early I get up, it still seems not to work for me. So I have to change that around sometimes and sit up all night doing the things that I feel I need to do to be creative. And it does get you going. And on page 195, they were talking about the hunches and inspirations and insights. Basically, that's what I run my life on. And it's a little different than what everybody thinks it should be, but it works for me. And if it doesn't feel right, then I might need to figure out another way to do it.
So I love that you're talking about how, Anne's a morning person. I love how you're talking about you as the woman of the evening to receive the insights and information, your hunches. I love that. And so when we talk about this I'm looking at my book right now. When we talk about the transformation of mediocrity into genius through transmutation, your company actually is doing that in a way that you're showing them, if I'm correct, about how to go from mediocrity to just think that you're not worthy to you being genius and tapping in, as you say, to your hunches. Can you share how you help, especially the people that you work with, how, and yourself, how do you transmute the your energy during the day, during the night, so that your vibes are really high?
Um, what I find myself doing is I like to listen. I'm not a big talker, and I know that kind of bothers people, but I've learned that by listening, I can form my opinions of what I feel is going on. Right or wrong, it's going to be mine. And I don't have a problem with changing my opinions later. I mean, I know a lot of people have opinions of me that are very wrong, but it's not for me to change them, it's for them to change theirs. And what I do is I continue to work with people. I don't tell them that they're wrong. It's more about, let's look at it this way. You know, maybe that is what's going on, but let's find out why. And
Mm.
how can we work through it? Because there's certain things that, you know, you might need to sit back and just be quiet and be still for a little bit before you
Well,
try to
I'm
work.
jumping in right here because I think that you just said something really important. Sometimes we just have to look at a different, that you are still, and you're telling them that maybe that there are other ways. And you've been reading the book. Ann McNeil knows, well, Ann, you take over and just for a second and just share what you know about mind shifts and the 13 ways.
Well, thank you so very much, Begin. Mind shifts. And let me start with Yolanda. And I've known Yolanda for quite a while. And I've seen the evolution and revolution of how she's used these principles. And what many people don't know about Yolanda that is a well-kept secret. Yolanda is one of the very few people, I'm not sure how many degrees she has, but it's a lot. What, maybe 3, 4, maybe more. So when you talk about being able to take these 13 principles and to apply them for a better quality of life, she is an excellent example of that. But let's talk about what are these principles. The principles start with desire. And the principle that we're discussing right now is none other than how do you use the power of sex transmutation? But hold on while you comment, like, and share this show. And also, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll put the link in the chat, but listen to this short video as we walk through all 13 steps.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the MasterMind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical. But what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of Step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
You know, Peter has been, egging me on because he really wants to talk to Yolanda. So I'm going to can I bring in Peter and Yolanda? Because I really think that these two really genius people have so much to share and so much to talk about. Peter, I know you want, I could see you eager, so go for it.
Yeah, just love to talk about sex every chance I get there, Pegeen. And so this is a great opportunity for me to be able to do so. And Yolanda, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your journey with us for sure. Got a question though for you. It's related to sex transmutation, but in a different type of way. So in this chapter, Napoleon Hill says that people who are driven by this desire in a positive, constructive sense can channel it to develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creative ability that are all but unknown at other times. So quite frankly there, Yolanda, I want to ask you, how have you been able to utilize these characteristics, take sex transmutation and utilize it in those characteristics that I just described in your life, in your business?
My life and my business are pretty much intermingled. I love children. I love young adults. I love being around older people. I like people, but it's just certain. I can always gather something from everyone and everything that's around me, and it helps me with being able to mash into all of this and learn how to help others at the same time. And with the sex mutation portion of it, it helps me to just take that energy that I have and move it in a different direction to feed into what my goals in life are, which are to shed light upon things that people think are dark and make them understand that, it may be a struggle and it looks like it on the outside, and it is. But when you switch it around, it turns into something so much different. And you can always take it and make it into you coming out if you look at it a different way. And I've had to learn to do that myself through a lot of things that I've gone through. And my goal is to continue to help young adults, especially when they're in school, because that's where my biggest struggles were, was when I went off to college and trying to navigate my way around certain students, certain teachers, and who weren't quite with the program that I was with. I picked a male dominated field, and it was extremely hard when people who were close to being my age who thought I had no place there. And without the guidance of my family and, just knowing who I am and what I am capable of doing, that it made me able to move forward and, take what they said, put it to the side, and prove them wrong. And the only way that you can show what you can do is to do it. And I achieved what I had intended to do. So now it's just continuing to do that and show other people that it can, take that negative stuff and, put it in a box and let it go and, move on, but in a better place. And it does help you in the end because it gives you more confidence and it gives you more energy to continue on.
Yeah, good stuff. And I love how you've been able to channel your energies into your passions, from what it sounds like as well. As we go over to Galen, I got to bring in a story literally about around sex. So maybe about 10 years ago, I had a buddy of mine, Galen. Really, that's all he wanted to talk about. Pete, that girl over there, she's so gorgeous. He wanted to talk about sex a lot. Just keep it real with you. And I would often say to him, and this is even pre Think and Grow Rich, I would say, wow, if you were just able to channel some of that energy into your goals, your dreams, your passions, your desires that you want to accomplish, you'd be rich right now. And I told him that. And in this chapter, this principle in Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill has really manifested that, made that come to fruition. So Galen, this thing is real.
Yeah, this thing is real, and I got some questions. I've got a question for Yolanda, but one of the things, Peter, that you talked about is just this, how you were able to talk to your friend and give him suggestions and recommendations on how to move forward with achieving his goals, using the very thing that he did all the time, right? And one of the things that I wanted to bring to mind is that that's exactly what happens at this annual meeting. Every year we go to Boca Raton and we talk to like-minded people who will do just what you just did, Dr. Peter. Give you suggestions, give you recommendations, have you take a look at your life. One of the requirements for this annual meeting is that you have to bring your life in writing. So you have to predetermine what you're going to talk about in this meeting, and that reflection really causes you to take stock on what have you been doing with your time. Have you been spending your energy against things that will advance your objectives, or have you been spending your energy on things that are maybe it's fun, but it's not consistent with advancing your objectives. And then you have to give an account of what are you planning to do with the next 365 days of your life to advance your objectives. One of my favorite phrases with my friends, very similar to you, is either do it or stop talking about it. And that's what this annual meeting is about. It's that commitment to either do these things that you said you were trying to do or stop talking about it, right? We get so caught up in saying what we're going to do someday. This is where you find that accountability. So this coming year, the meeting is going to be January 7th and 8th in Boca Raton. I registered a couple of weeks ago, so I'm already committed. I'm going to be there, and I am looking forward to seeing as many people who are listening to this there as well. So my question back to Yolanda, one of the things that Peter raises and the book talks about actually on page 191 is how do you live life on purpose? And I think it's later in the chapter, Napoleon Hill says that everyone seems to access this genius level creativity accidentally, right? But the question is, how do you do this on purpose? And in on page 191, he lists 10 different stimuli that people can use or people do use to access creativity, this high level of thinking on purpose. The desire for sex being at the top of the list. But my question to you, Ms. Phillips, is how have you used, how have you accessed creativity on purpose in your organization? What are some things that you do when you need to come up with a creative idea, when you need to make sure that you're not just talking about things that you want to do someday, but actually getting some action steps behind it? What are some things that you do?
Well, some of those things that I do is I need somewhere quiet, and then eventually I let the noise in. But I usually try to put my headphones on whether I'm listening to something or not. It just gives the illusion that it's a quiet place. And I just sit for a few minutes and I think about the things that I want to do. I think about the things that I've told other people when they say what they want to do. And I just start trying to, well, I start writing it down. And sometimes it makes no sense. It's just writing in a paper on a page, and I have to go back later. I can't do it right then. I just do whatever I can at that moment while I'm there. And once I'm done, I close it and I come back later so that I can gather my thoughts again to see where I was at that point. And so a lot of times it comes back and it manifests into something different than what I initially thought, but it was still on that line where I felt that I needed to go. So that's how I handle it.
Well, I love it. I love it. Sounds, Miss Ann, that sounds very familiar with your daily date with yourself. So you've got to be enjoying this.
Yes, yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. Yolanda, I have quite a few questions, and if it's okay with my host, I want to not pussyfoot around here. And I really would like to get to the crux of the matter. Can you share with our audience the listing of all of your degrees? And then I want to just set this up. I want to set it up so all of you who are listening, I want you to, as Yolanda is answering these questions, I want you also to think about how do you, because see, even Yolanda is literally sitting in the hot seat. We're talking to every single one of you that's listening. Because in order for you to go from where you are to where you desire to be, you must learn how to transmute your energy. And I think somebody said it earlier in the presentation today, and I think it might have been Yolanda, but somebody said, I did not know that that's what I was doing. And it's not until we each read this principle, and if you're listening to this for the very first time, skip. Just go straight to the principle or Google it. If you don't have the book, Google the principle. You can do it on YouTube, you can do it on Google, you can read the book, that part of the principle. But Napoleon Hill tells us that the creative faculty becomes alert to each of us from the vibrations of thought. And this is part of your subconscious mind giving you back whatever it is that you desire. That's simply what it is. And oftentimes we take those hunches, those vibrations, that is the creative imagination, or if you want to use synthetic imagination, but let's say creative imagination from the universe, giving you the answers to whatever you're praying about, whatever you're affirming, whatever you're desiring, whatever it is that you want. That, very simply, that is called sex transmutation. You're taking one form of energy and you're transferring it into another. So, Yolanda, my question for you is, go back to the degrees. Can you tell us the name of each of the degrees that you have? Then once you do that, I'm going to ask you, after you share that, if you stop and think right now where you were in your life at the time that you got one degree, then you got another degree, then you got another degree. I want you to ask yourself, and this was not pre-planned. I want to make sure everybody understands this was not a pre-planned question, but it just came to me as we're listening and as we're studying this principle, because I believe that for each one of us, wherever we are in life, oftentimes when we do what Yolanda is going to explain that she has done, we're actually transferring energy, yes, into another form. And oftentimes it Dr. Pete, this is not about you, Dr. Pete. I'm talking to Yolanda. I'm talking to Yolanda. But oftentimes it equates into degrees. So Yolanda, can you share with our listeners and all the people who are listening and watching all of your degrees, and then tell us why and where you were at the time that you got them? Because I am thoroughly convinced from knowing you that it might have been a period in your life where you were actually transferring energy.
Oops. Okay.
Oops, there it is. That's what. Yes, let's go there.
My first
Number
degree
one.
is
What's the first? Okay, first degree.
electrical engineering.
Okay, hold it, everybody. Did you hear what she said? She is an electrical engineer. That was the first degree. How long did it take you to do that?
About 5 years.
Okay, hold up now. 5 years. Now, where were you in life?
Um,
Married, children?
by the time I finished, I was married with one child. And then the second degree was a master's in project management.
How long?
It took me 2.5 for that
Two
one.
and a half years. So now that's 7 years of degrees. And now, next,
I had my master's in business administration.
how long?
Probably just barely 2 years. And I was
Okay.
divorced by then, and I had to shift my focus on what I needed.
Focus is energy. I want
Mhm.
everybody to just hover here for a moment. She's shifting energy from one degree to another degree to another degree. And now, what was the next one?
That was it. I decided to stop
Oh,
there right
well,
now. I'm not going to say it's not
well.
over.
When we met, you were in the process of going back to school and
Well,
getting
that
another
was
certificate. Yes. And the reason why I'm having this conversation with Yolanda and I know each other well enough, I can go here. I wanted to suggest to all of us, and like I said to Yolanda when we do work together, by the way, she didn't say that, but I'll say that. Yolanda has attended how many Black NSA masterminds that I host for those of us, and actually Beguine, Galen, Peter, we were all a part of the National Speakers Association Black NSA $1 million Mastermind. How many of you attended, Yolanda?
at least four.
At least four.
At
At
least
least
four.
four. Okay. Now, the reason I'm going through this line of questioning is because I want every one of us who is listening. This is what it looks like when you are transferring energy from one form to another form to another form. And if you look at it on a scale of 1 to 10, and Yolanda, we talked about this, and you're trying to get to 10, 10 is that place of your desire, whatever it is that you're called to do, that passion, that purpose. But when you start here at a 1 or a negative number, you're searching for self fulfillment and self esteem and self worth and all of those things. And sometimes we find them in degrees. I'll say for myself, I don't know about you, Yolanda, and I'll talk for Dr. Peter and some of us on here. And so when we learn that as you tap into this creative imagination, using synthetic imagination, so what Yolanda's been able to do, she's been able to get all of these degrees and become extremely educated, and a professional and an expert in her craft. Then she began to learn how to take that craft and turn it into a business. So, my question back to you, Yolanda, is if you think back to the combination of all of these degrees, which I would say probably over a good, maybe about a 20-year period of time, would you say?
Pretty much.
Okay. Think back to where you were in life, personally. Did you find any kind of solace or escape? Or I'll use the word escape. Okay.
That was a good word.
Okay. So share with us in your own words, because I want the audience to really understand. Begin did an excellent job when she set up the conversation, when she started us on the journey, when she talked about how this principle is set up by Napoleon Hill, when he talks about the fact we haven't even gotten into the mind stimuli and all of those other things, the 10 mind stimuli. And well, I'll just talk about the first. The first one he talked about was the desire for sex expression and love. And sometimes we do look for love in these things, but also a burning desire, he tells us, for fame or power or financial gain or money. And I'm not sure if you're desiring to get these degrees, if it was really a matter of financial desire for money or gain, or maybe to help support your family. So can you share with us in your words, please, what that was like?
To me, it was necessity. And when I say necessity, it's probably not what everybody else is thinking. But I found myself with the first degree, it was necessity because my mom told me that I could not follow what my plan was go into the military and then go to school later. So I was my hands were forced because I was underage and she wasn't going to sign me up. So I had to go to school. I always liked tinkering and doing things, and so I chose electrical because that's what I saw for me on the inside at that time. Then when I went back for my master's in project management, I was at a job that I knew that I was appreciated by the people I worked with, but underutilized by the company. There was nowhere for me to go. And for all that I had done and was doing, which was benefiting me because I had someone who saw what I had and allowed me to do those things and help me move forward. It was like, okay, I've been here. I'm not going to get anything out of it monetarily. So I'm going to go to school. They pay for it. I can get it. This is what I'm going to take from them. So I took what they were taking from me and I gave it back to them. And I got the money that I felt was deserving, which did propel me to another job somewhere else. And the third degree was I was in another company who, again, a little underappreciated. There were those that saw what I had and they used me for what they could. I mean, not used, but used. And at times I was pretty much pimped out because of who I was in a male dominated field. And this saying, don't give me
I'm
that
sorry,
look.
you were what out? I
Pimp,
apologize.
pimped, P-I-M-P. Pimp.
No, we are wait. So we are talking about transmutation. I just want to make sure that
Yes.
I heard the word properly and the audience heard the word properly, because that is exactly what I'm attempting to pull out of you, Yolanda. That transmutation of the energy, you, like so many of us, are learning how to transform it into something that's beneficial to you. So
Yes.
please continue.
So I took that moment to decide that there was something else that I wanted to do. It was something that I felt I had to give, that I could not do within the confines of that organization. So the only way I could do it was to learn how to run a business before I started a business. So that was my way of going and contributing to myself and pimping me for me and making my own organization so that when I see people coming and I can help the students before they get out there and realize that they're being pimped and them not being angry about it, but turning that anger into something that's going to benefit them. And so I kind of, explained to my kids that, the same way. And my grandmother was the one who said that education is the one thing that they can never take from you. So, and she had a sixth grade education. My grandfather had a third grade education. So that was big for them. But, my family, my mom and my dad had degrees and were educators and a nurse. So it was something I did not want to do, but I needed to find where I fit. And I fit in the midst of, I guess, more of a mentorship kind of thing. I wanted to be a foster parent, but then I realized that I would get attached and then I wouldn't want to let the kids go.
Okay,
So
well, let me, I might, everything is burning up here in the back in the studio. So everybody wants to now get in. I'm not sure if it's the P word, but, but I will say to you too, Galen, we're going to go back to the annual meeting because Yolanda has attended. So when you finish asking your question, and now Peter's laughing, and of course our mastermind host, Miss Begin, is just biting at the bit. So I'm going to turn on my mute on my.
You started this thing.
Yolanda, we just set so so just so you know, there are three of us behind the scenes that were listening to you, and we're listening to Anne, and we were like, oh my gosh, she went where we wanted to go. This is exactly so. We can't help but be excited. So, all right, Galen, I know,
It was
I
the P
know, I
word.
know
It was
you
the
got the
P
pink
word.
thing. So go
Go
for it,
ahead.
Galen.
Yeah, so this mentioning it was the P word, the pimp. I heard a speaker right when I was out of business school, and we had a speaker who was actually on The Apprentice, and his name is escaping me right now. He was the first African American contestant on The Apprentice with Donald Trump. And I was part of the National Black MBA Association, and he must have said a lot of amazing things because he was a brilliant guy, and he wrote several books and real estate and all of this stuff. But the only thing I remember is towards the end of his conversation, he said, "Look, corporate America is really about pimps and prostitutes, and if you're not the pimp, guess what?" And he stopped right there. And that's what we're talking about. How do you do like Yolanda did and understand how do you create what you're trying to create for your life? How do you do it on purpose? And I've had so many conversations with clients, with coaching clients, usually younger coaching clients, and they seem to be waiting and hoping that the world will come to them, that the world will do for them and help them achieve the goals that they say that they want. And that's not what Yolanda, Miss Phillips, just described. She said, how do I take this situation and make it do what I'm looking for it to do? How do I make sure that I'm the pimp and not the prostitute in this situation. And like I said, that must have been 35 years ago, but that has stuck with me. That phrase, I don't know what else he said, but this idea, if you are not the pimp, guess what?
You know, go ahead, Peter, because go ahead, just go.
Yeah, I just exactly what Galen said. Everything what Galen said, exactly from a corporate perspective, from a life perspective. So think about it. We're often looking for easy solutions, and going to work for an organization, a corporation, is somewhat of a path where someone is telling you what to do. And more life, governments, corporations are trying to strip away our power, right? So stay with me on this. Disempower us. And to Galen's credit, I work with clients in order to show them that how do you take that power back? How do you become more empowered in your life, in your business, in your career? And even asked another way, how can you use sex transmutation to shift the narrative back to you having the power moving forward? And you're right. For many years, many of us are just being pimped. Thank you so much, Yolanda. You just light bulbs, flashes, a whole lot of stuff is going on over my head, and I appreciate that for sure. But
You
now
know,
it's a matter of shifting this narrative. And Pagine, I'm all about shifting away from the pimp narrative and shifting now to apply this sex transmutation in the most strategic way.
well, I'm so glad that you said that because I'm just going to take a little bit of a shift. I have always, well, not always, as I've matured and grew, and like you, Yolanda, I mean, just have the masters, the all the certificates. I've invested in that time, and I'm glad that you asked the questions that you did, Anne, because it made me reflect about why did I do that, and here's why I recognize about something because I don't. What's happening out there, what you're trying to do with me, I'm going to take full ownership of how I'm feeling about things. And I say orgasmic. I want freaking orgasmic experiences. I felt that way when I crossed the stage and I got my diplomas. I feel that way when I'm invited by the US president to come in. I feel that way when I'm talking to Ann. I feel orgasmic because let me tell you something. When I do that, I know that I'm doing it for me. I know that I'm the one that's in charge. I'm the one that's in charge of my satisfaction. I'm the one that's moving in the direction. And guess what? I might be the pimp. And hell no, I'm never going to be the other. I never have been because I'm more like a goddess warrior. Get out of my way. We're getting the job away because it feels so freaking good. And that's where I'm at. And I want to, we're close ending, so I want to go really fast around. And starting with Ann. Ann, how do we get in touch with you? How do people connect with you? Yeah, I'm leaving it with the orgasmic to you, girl.
Listen, I'm still on the woman of few words. Now Yolanda's sitting there. As a matter of fact, she has even leaned back in her chair. Everybody's noticed Yolanda has she dropped the mic at that word, PIMP. We'll find another acronym to describe that. But I like to suggest that it is the way that you transfer the energy. And then Galen came in and gave us a picture of how to do it because you're either one or the other and you get to choose. Now, I'm going to say how you can connect with me, but I do want to suggest actually, how do you transfer the energy? Really, how do you transfer that energy? And I'd like to suggest that one way to do it is if I reach back here, and this book is called A Daily Date with Myself. And this is one of the ways you can transfer that energy because later on in the principle, we will discuss the man who set for ideas. He was able to transmute his energy into ideas and he was paid millions of dollars for ideas. But how do you do that? I suggest that you can sit and journal your thoughts, but also require your mind to give you ideas, to give you opportunities, and transfer that energy. If you'd like to connect with me, you can reach me at annmcmill.com and participate in our coaching program, just annmcmill.com/coaching. And you can connect with me through this journal by journaling your ideas and learning how to transmute that energy from one form of energy into your desires, but only if you want to double your income, you want to double your time, and you want to have a better quality of life. Back to you, Bikini.
Galen, how do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the best way to get a hold of me is by accessing my podcast, Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. And it actually just dawned on me that the reason I'm having so much fun and success with this podcast is because in that podcast, we access and kick off so many of the 10 stimuli that Napoleon Hill talks about. We talk to friends. We talk about power. We talk about money. We talk about alcohol. We talk about a mastermind alliance. So literally, this book is empowering the podcast. So I double dog dare you to check out Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership on any podcast platform. Check us out just once.
One day you're going to have to tell me what double dog means, because I need to know that. Not now, but that's when I'm on your show. Peter.
Loving the show today there, Pegeen. Great stuff. My name is Dr. Peter A. James, the high performance coach, helping you to shift your mindset. You can find me on any social media platform at Dr. Peter A. James. That's at DrPeterAJames. Pegeen, today was all about sex, but not just to sex itself, but what to do with sex. I'm hoping one person was able to see how they could shift that energy. Good stuff, Pegeen.
I love it. And Yolanda, I can't begin to thank you enough for being on the show. How do people contact you? Because, there are a lot of people that are going to want to know how to contact you.
You can contact me at Yolanda at C as in cat, Y as in Yolanda, P as in Paul, M as in Mary, Corp, CORP.com.
And we'll put that in the chat for everybody. We just want to honor you and thank you so much, Yolanda, for the wisdom, for the clarity. Okay. And the concept of the pimp and the prostitute. I mean, come on, girl. You just blew our minds. But all the depth that you gave to us was really important and useful. For everybody watching it, you can always follow me on my Pegeen.club if you want every day some inspiration about business, leadership, confidence, orgasmic opportunities to be your highest best. You definitely want to join the Pegeen.club. And I look forward to seeing you. Also, everybody, please, there you go. Everybody also, please make sure that you subscribe and invite lots of people to become members of this show. Just subscribe, keep on following. Next week, we have Dr. Guri, who's coming, the Red Shoe. She is so, Dr. Margarita Guri, she's so brilliant, and she really knows about transmutation. She's a fabulous person. I look forward to seeing you all. In the meantime, subscribe. We will see you next week. Have a fabulous weekend.